meta conversations about politics, about culture, and about handling this information, these patterns. Today, I have purchased the Human Awareness Institute.org for $8.99, and given all of the work that I do with my virtual assistant, the 4-Hour Work Week was a wonderful tool for me about 8 years ago in pivoting my business towards something that, while my goal is not 4 hours a week, my virtual assistant attends to 3 hours of the stuff that I would collapse doing, and my home care assistant takes an hour a day of routine burden away from me. And my different pivots, including paying my crew an extra $5 an hour above market rates, has been what I thought would be. It was one of the insights I had on one of my first MDMA journeys. Was it's about love, it's about caring, it's about being of service, and how can I make my crew the happiest? Well, give them an extra $5 an hour. They're thrilled. But I had not anticipated the way that this paid off in terms of rather than being a crew that griped and complained or didn't always show up. Now they were a crew that, hey Dane, whenever you want to work, we're here, we're waiting, we're ready. Can't wait till you come back from your next vacation. We're ready to go. We want to work with you. And so turnover has gone down. Skill and motivation has gone up. Partnership has gone up. So paying the whole crew an instant $5 an hour bonus turned right around to lead to probably the biggest expansion in grace and therefore money, because they're into working these 10-hour days, 6 days a week, and they're learning what they're doing. So I'm down to 2 hours a week, which is fortunate because as I've collapsed, 2 hours a day, which is fortunate because as I've collapsed on the floor or whatever, that they have actually, that gift to them has been the gift that has carried me and the business through a time where I had no energy to deal with politics or motivating a crew or anything like that. So that actually for the first time elevated the relationship with the team, since I'm not an easy person to work with, given that I'm very sensitive, understand the sensitivities of my clients. I'm a very perfectionistic artist and did all of this work myself for the first 5 years with no help, in a highly motivated state, which means that I'm a little bit like Bill Gates in the early days of Microsoft, in which he put in these 100-hour work weeks and get a lot done and cause mental collapse to a lot of his team around him. And he was never satisfied. Come on, get it together. I could have done that in a weekend. And that this is all out of fear. It's out of a panic, a deep survival panic that I have not been able to understand until recently, but I could certainly observe. I could say that, I have a compulsiveness around pleasing my clients and doing what I say I will be doing and getting my crew to do the same, that has often left a very effective operation, but a very cold operation. And I love the Hispanics because they are from such a warm background that they give me warmth, much more warmth than I give them. And so I've always been grateful to their warmth. And I pay them back in little ways I hire a very incompetent father of a very competent son, and I pay them the same rate, just so that the son and father can stay together. And I've told the son privately, I mean, you're worth twice what your father is, and I would not hire your father directly, but I want to keep your family together. Because that's why you're so warm. You know, you have a gift in Mexico of family that I've never had. And even though, you know, I get irritated every time I see your father doing the exact opposite of what I showed him to do and taking twice as much time as is necessary to do it. I know he would be shamed if I paid him half the rate you're making, and I know that you care about him, and in your culture it's respectful, and you're doing a great job. So if you will keep your father, you know, not actually losing me money, I will keep you together as a family. And so these types of and this puts pressure on my coping strategy, because when there is no love and no emotional bond, the message is that one's only value comes from competency. It's a message in a wound that many American men live in. And clients trust me because I am very competent. I'm attentive, ethical, and competent with them. And I know what that takes. I know what it takes, and I know how it pays off. When I was doing one of my first large jobs, I saw that happening when I really took care of a client, when I made some mistakes. And, you know, it turned out to, you know, they turned around and gave me one of my biggest jobs after I did a good job of cleaning up a mistake without any excuses and with a full refund. And so I'm carrying through on that, and this is just kind of a gift in a way, because I can function because of my team. I would be completely dysfunctional without, you know, my house assistant, my virtual assistant, a very loyal and caring crew, and that's all come from doing. And it's interesting, Henry Ford, actually, I didn't borrow that bit initially, because when I started my business, it was so hard. And, you know, I made $7 an hour, and, you know, so it was very difficult for me to be generous. So that was a real gift to kind of get outside the wound of how hard it had been for me and give a gift that certainly I had never received in my life, and find within the MDMA experience a closer sense of self and of me than the adaptation to the unhealed wounds that was the me I had grown up as. And I never thought it would pay off. I just thought I'll accept a $10,000 to $20,000 decrease in my income to give this bonus. But it's actually turned around, and I'm now working less and making more because I have a highly motivated crew, which means that I'm free to do things. I'm free to make hundreds of hours of videos. I'm free to write 2 books a year. I'm free to travel. I'm free to care in areas that balm some of my deepest pain, which I'm much more acute to, because my pain, or my experience of pain, went up roughly 500% in the aftermath of my expectations and how that intersected with the reality of the high facilitator's sense of ethics, sense of protocol, skill, training, effectiveness, love, and willingness. It was just... I'm listening to a book today by Tom Rath, and media has played an important journey on this 2-year period with me, because media has sometimes been my only human companion, feeling safer with media sources, Brené Brown, Tom Rath, documentaries, Terence McKenna, and Bessel van der Kolk and other books along those lines. Finding my sanity, finding my courage, finding my reassurance in these heroes that had the courage to go against the grain, something that I've often done alone. And I met a woman shopping today, buying one of my clients a present, which and I noticed her child was autistic, and so I noticed he was artistic and she was unusually present for an American adult in a shopping experience. And we got to talking. Turns out she is the head of psychiatry of a major San Francisco institution, and her son has autism, and her husband is also a psychiatrist that works with a lot of wealthy individuals and family dynamics. And we talked for an hour. In the doorway in was my love for her son, my interest in him, my awareness of the probability fields that he is dealing with, and my curiosity, could I be of any support or not? He loves reading, so I gave him one of my books, and that was fun. And we were talking about her life and the challenges of her raising her son in this culture. We're talking about her freedom, that as I often notice, that it's women over 50 years old that stop giving a fuck about the culture and start honoring who they are and their children and the tensions, the many situations. A sick culture will divide the internal reality of its citizenry multiple times, forcing a parent to choose between what's good for her son and what looks good, between what's normal and what brings happiness, between being fired, and so she asked me why I wanted to die. And she asked me what I meant when I said, I am constantly attacked for being the person that I want to be in my own culture. And I get little or no support from this culture to honor and be the parts in me that are important to me. I am honored in this culture for my money, for my articulating talent, for my sarcasm, and for my left brain intelligence. I am honored for these 4 traits. I'm honored for my efficiency, my competency, and my professionalism. I get my work done on budget and on time, basically, and I do what I say I'll do, and I have taken care of myself since I left home at 17 with $50 and paid for everything that I've paid for from what I have learned in my own self-taught homeschool program. But of course the joke is, I'm not a self-made man. I've read hundreds of books. I've learned from every biography, every course, every single interaction, including with this woman. I come away with more understanding. And who I am is a result of these thousands of people, not myself. And she didn't understand why I felt attacked. And so I explained it to her. And she started to understand. She started talking about how the same thing happened for her. How she wanted to laugh more and bring that into her board meetings. That everyone was upset. And she had to risk being fired to stay who she was. And I talked about the fact that my clients lose respect for me, punish me, and discount my earnings in direct proportionate to 2 traits. 3 traits, actually. One is when I care about their marriage and family dynamics more than a garden, which I think is humanly intelligent. I wish that every human being ignored the professional box to show caring, human caring, for human beings that are in suffering. I wish that we lived in a culture where when someone was in pain, regardless of the professional role, that we knew that being human was our first responsibility. And so if I see a client fighting about a garden, I tell them, get rid of me. I have no interest in being used for your marital spat or your power play. I don't think this garden is as important as your relationship. I don't care whether it's a $5,000 job or a $200,000 job. What I care about in this instance is that this project either stops, doesn't begin, or strengthens your marriage. Some people love it. Some people fire me. But I wouldn't get fired if I didn't care about people's marriages. When I'm feminine and engaging, again, leaving my box. When I develop intimacy, it creates ripples more often than not. It creates confusion and ripples. And yet I want to be empathic and present for an activity that's more than a third of my life. And I have never had a client complain when I was too professional. I actually watch my social standing and my money go up to the degree that I maintain a sociopathic, calm blank protocol. Simply listen and say it, and repeat what's said, and then do whatever that's done, and don't acknowledge anything else. 70% of the time, I get a weakened professional position as a result of honoring my humanity. I hate that. When I go to a dance, and I'm just explaining this to this woman, when I go to a dance and I'm feminine and connected and smile, more than 70% of the time, the man or the woman recoils. A host of range of stories. They think I'm coming on to them. They think I'm gay. They think this. It's weird. Whatever. It's not normal. What's going on? That's dangerous. Whatever it is. When I invite that, when I share a body movement that's very tender, and I invite a conversation, most people say, no, that's not what I want. I just want physical contact. I want integration, heart, mind, and body. It's not wanted. It's the same when I talk, I've had several occasions where high women in my house have just kind of spontaneously started undressing. They're laying naked or whatever, and I don't respond because this is a high probability setup. In our country, the seat of power and the seat of value rests in the overdeveloped left brain. So it's not how much pleasure I give their body. It's not how much care I give to the unspoken shadow. It's not how much love I show her little girl that will determine whether she thinks I'm an asshole or a kind, loving being. It is the algorithm in this left brain. I have no interest in that game. So I pause and I invite them to talk. May we have a long conversation about boundaries, around expectations, this, that. No. Yeah, I'm not really into that. I'll see if I have time, and they just disappear. And I have the same thing with people who are happy to abstractly discuss stuff at great length. But may I hold your hand? May I stroke your face? May I look at you as you're talking? How does this feel to you? I get all these ideas you have. I get that you're interested in a seventh chakra connection. So how does this feel? What about the other chakras? Do you want a connection on all levels? Yeah, I do. Well, how are you going to have a body connection talking in the abstract at 5 feet away? May I hold your hand? No, I don't feel comfortable about that. I'm happy to talk about seventh chakra connections for a few more hours, but I'm not ready to actually be here with you. So I'm forced to either divide and compartmentalize myself and repress the part of me that is growing at the same time as other parts of me, to take the imbalanced shape of my partner in order to respect her imbalance, or cross a boundary, or disengage. I disengage a lot because I don't want to fight people. I don't want to cross their boundaries. And I don't want to split to where my body is much further along or much further behind my heart and my mind, where my heart is much further along or much further behind my mind. I want heart, mind, and body to grow in balance, in relationship, together. Which means if we're sharing heartfelt stories and deep emotions, I want to be holding your hand, man or woman. This is not welcome. One of my closest male friendships is a big source of friction. Don't hug me in public, Dane. I'm happy to tolerate a 2-second hug at the beginning, but the real meat of this for me is I just want to talk about all your ideas. I want to hear what you've been doing in Thailand. I want this, I want that. Yeah, you want all that. You want to live in your head. And I'm interesting to you up there, but I'm disgusting to you down here. And I feel alone. I don't want to respect that boundary. I don't want to be in that divide. But the choice I get is not to have a warm, rich friendship with a mutual man who values me as much as I value him on all levels. Or not. It's to be in my head and join him there and feel alone, or not be in any relationship at all. And I choose the latter. Because without some ideal to go towards, I'm in so much pain. I don't want to live. If life is settling for that, it's not enough. It's not an answer to that degree of loneliness, pain, shame, grief, and trauma. It's not enough. I explain that as kindly as I can. More than 60% of people take offense. I try and be intimate, and that is not welcome. I explain that it's not healthy for me, and they hear a mental judgment. But it's not a mental judgment. It's an ache in my chest. It's an exhaustion in my body. It's a despair in my heart. Well, do you think you're so much better than da-da-da-da-da, and that's not normal, and da-da-da, and, this is just a conversation. I'm not your wife. I don't care what labels you put it on. I don't care whether it's appropriate, inappropriate, this, that. You can label it up the wazoo. The label does not change my body sensation, my pain, the grief that I feel, and the fact that I will be too tired after spending some hours with you to be the person I want to be. And I don't want to reject you. But in order to not reject myself, I have to either reject you or tell these parts of me that start growing in natural, healthy form to be suppressed. And it's not different. This is not a pattern that is new. It's certainly not personal to me. I see the same craziness in my clients, who anytime a plant is so happy it starts to become exuberant and wild. That's the plant they're upset with. That plant's getting a little too vigorous there. I think I'll take it out. Is that its only crime? Its vigor, its health? Do you like the flower? Oh, I love the flower. Do I have year-round interest? Oh, great year-round interest. Deer resistant? Yeah. Drought tolerant? Yes. It's just, let's just get it out of there. It's taking over the garden. They put some little thing that struggles, and they'll nurse that, something that's half dead. They'll fuss with it. They love those plants. And these are, of course, slices, but there's part of the same pattern. Women love the men, apparently, that they have to coax slowly into sharing more of their feelings. I hear these women talking about their strategies to get a little bit more emotion. If I walk into one of those conversations and say, hello ladies, would you like to create a strong flow of emotional transparency in an hour? You want to have that experience. Gosh, you're not an American man. What the hell are you? That's not your role. You know, you're supposed to be coaxed and this and that and the other. Well, I'm too tired to play that game. I'm just here. And you're complaining about that. I cannot find any women that want to talk like that, so it seems like we're in the same boat. Well, you know, it's perfectly clear they're struggling to find some way to extricate themselves from the situation, and so it's this similar thing, who I want to be. When I play with children in the park, one of my favorite things is to advocate for children in a way that I know I didn't receive, and it's, you know, with presence, with playfulness, seeing things through their eyes, letting their world be real, more real than the culture's world. And I have 10 seconds before I'm a pedophile, before I'm a threat, before I'm a competitor. 10 seconds in this country. So I can't play with children. I can't behave the way I want in public. I can't connect with men. I can't have deep, intelligent conversations at a healthy pace when I first meet someone, which is, you know, if I can't have that, I don't want to meet them again. I have no interest in, let's play games for 6 months and then we'll have healthy conversations. Again, I'm too tired. It's too much weight to put up with that amount of absurdity for 6 months. For a month. I'm looking for the person that just wants to talk and be present, who loves their own tears, who will join me in sadness and joy with equal delight, who will love my need, my neediness, who will love being loved in their need and their neediness. These are the most fertile soils in any garden. Need and neediness. Desperation. It's potent. It's potent. If you handle the dynamite of desperation with love and skill and priority, you will fuel a rocket that takes off in a way that nothing else takes off. Even the most desperate people I meet in this country are not focusing their energy on harnessing their desperation to transcend and transform their mediocrity. They're spending all their energy hiding it because they will be shamed. And they're even more alarmed when I don't shame them, when I zero in on the desperation and look, what do you need there? What would you do anything to heal, to love, to be? Desperation is always a key to the soul. Always. And that's exactly why this culture is so brutal at shaming it. But what it means is that the desperation that is all around me is locked up behind masks and doorways, that I am attacked for seeking to open. I just knocked on my neighbor's door recently this afternoon. She's always given me the cold shoulder. I thought, I wonder who this neighbor is. She's home, she's retired, she lives there with her lesbian girlfriend. I knocked on the door, is this a good time to say hello? And she's instantly looking at me with so many veils that I don't know exactly what they are. I just know that I'm ugly, threatening, and unwelcome. my neighbors. You know, it's who wants to live? And of course the message is, oh, Dane, you're really smart. Here's what you need to do. You need to talk to people like this. You need to not do this. Now, don't look at children in the park because that will scare the parents. You need to pretend you don't care about children. You need to pretend you don't want to connect emotionally with your dance partners. You need to play hard to get. You need to go slowly. You need to do this. You need to not connect with your neighbors. You need to talk with people online. You need to do this. You need to do that. Do you realize you could go to Harvard? You remind me of my professor. You could go there and then you need to apply all these brilliant skills to run a corporation, a business. I mean, you're really smart. That's what you need to do. And I've got just the plan for you. And it'll work. You're just a few steps away from being entirely buried in the prison, the stupidity, and the dis-ease of a culture that splits its citizenry into so many small pieces of division and then silences all the dissenting voices and spices it with alcohol, addiction, and a little wit, a little bit of dissociative pleasure, hedonism, and sex. And you'll be a success. And the whole thing makes me cry. The whole thing is so sad to realize that most people don't even realize what the problem is that I'm so upset about, or that I would die if I agreed to play that role, that the most important parts of me would die. They cannot survive that level of self-negation, self-abandonment, self-betrayal. And that much negation and betrayal of something that I still see, not too deep beneath the surface, in the people I connect with. So I am punished for being the me I want to be in the arenas that I like to play in. 87% of the time, would you bet on those odds? Would you go to Vegas and gamble your soul with 87% odds of losing? Could you survive long before bankruptcy? It's not a good game. It's not a good game. Now, high changes that dynamic significantly. Not entirely. Not entirely. Not entirely. There are still some really funny statistics I might get into in terms of all the different ways that I've sliced and sampled data in the high community from. But it's not. There are some areas that are just taboo, and I'm hungry for those areas. And I can find them in the presence and the softness of a feminine culture in Thailand. I can find them in 1 out of 10 masseuses. I can find them in the spontaneity of the day. And it is one of my most frightening challenges. One of my most frightening challenges to let go of the coping strategies that have seen me honored and in control in this culture. Strategies of management, and money that allow me to make $30,000 a month, but at the same time make me so sick that I'm kind of like right on that edge at every other month. Work a month, get to Thailand for a month, work a month, get to Thailand for a month. The return is hard. I go deeper into addiction within days of returning to America because of the absence of human presence in a way that is 10 times more abundant with friend and stranger alike in Thailand. 5 times more abundant in the Philippines. 500%, 1,000% of the medicine I need most. And it is a sociopathic nightmare to get through all of both governments' regulations and figure out how not to be considered an enemy by either government and be there. Weird stuff. I'm not 50. You can't retire and get a retirement visa until you're 50. What do you do with that? I'm ready to retire. Well, you can't. Okay? Sociopathic governments all around. I want to buy some land here. I can build the house I want to live in Thailand for the same price as getting a building permit in Marin. $30,000. 1 million baht buys a lovely little cottage to my custom design. $30,000 buys a 3-year building permit process in Marin, of which they're very proud to outline not only this, but request another $30,000 or $40,000 in studies and feasibility and engineering costs. So really, the right to build in Marin, I've been advised by the county, is obtained by a total of $70,000, more than twice the cost of building my land. Now, I can't build what I want or what I like. It's a very weird set of parameters. And I've built houses, and I know what I want. And there are so many ways I would love to live on my land, which is just nearby. That would be fun and adventuresome. It would be safe and healthy. That would be intelligent. That would free up hundreds of thousands of dollars to be doing more fun, creative, and useful contributory things. They could give a shit about that impact. Yeah. We're proud to make it hard to build in Marin. Okay. Screw yourselves, as usual, with lower tax revenues from people who give up. I had the stamina before all this came up with High to actually deal with that. A good plan to set that all up. It's just too sick at this point. After all of this and all of the grief and realizing just how toxic it is on so many levels to the spirit that wants to come in, that wants to live in each one of us, and is hammered into a corner by values, goals, protocols, standards, projections, and attacks that have very little to do with the human well-being and the healthy presence of the individual. And they all claim to, they all set out to in some way or others. I'm sure the building department has spent millions of dollars writing their 3 inches of regulations and how this was all for everyone's good. The bottom line is, and they started, telling me about how my neighbors had to be protected, and I went and met all my neighbors of my new house. They all loved what I wanted to do. So I go back. Well, we don't actually care what your neighbors say. These are the hypothetical neighbors we are protecting. Well, why? My neighbors liked this. I worked out a plan that would help their land improve because I'm into win-win. So-and-so has a retaining wall that's collapsing, and the way I'm going to do my design will make it so they don't have to replace their retaining wall. Because from an engineering point of view, it's more intelligent. I can solve their problem for 10% of the cost of them solving their problem. And they can do things for me for 10% of the cost. So it's a big win-win. Well, we don't really think that way around here. And we don't actually care what your neighbors think. And we don't care who you are. And we don't care what you want. We are your government. And you need to pay us to penalize, harass you, and block you from doing everything you want to do. I see. That's, I guess, shouldn't be too surprising, but it's sad. And our world does not have any problems that this disease is not causing. And it can't be healed while protecting the disease. It can't be healed while protecting the disease. Now, why I feel so passionate about all this in the context of high is it has a chance to change, for one. It has a chance to change and grow. But it's also, in some way, billed as the alternative. High is not a government-controlled, mandated way for people to develop. It's an independent and alternative to the dis-ease. And we get really fucked when our alternatives, when our resources, when our oases become sick with the politics and the dis-ease that is there in the culture. That's when we're really in trouble, when there's no place for an individual to turn. I'm struggling at $30,000 a month with being a business owner and with very sharp analyzing skills that I've used to study more than 30 fields for thousands of hours, thousands and tens of thousands of hours, and I'm having trouble. There's areas where I see my brittleness, my fragility, my vulnerability, and I have no certainty that this body will be alive in this environment, because I have no certainty that I will either be willing to numb and anesthetize the amount of pain that is injected into me, or that I will have the competency, with so little support and so many large forces moving around me, starting with my parents and now governments and this and that, so many large and sociopathic forces moving around me, none of which see me and have my well-being as their core concern. And the amount of pain that this environment can influence and cause in my psyche, I may not survive. And that rings alarm bells. Because it's not enough to be an addicted, numb, tuned out, meaningless body. And that's the only way to get through in such a sociopathic system. Because that is a cancer. It's not enough to become a cancer just to survive the hostility of this environment. It's not enough. We need real human beings that don't just pay lip service to love and growth and caring and how you doing, I've got to go, you know. We need people that don't just pay lip service, but who are supported And the reality is that with intelligent design and freedom where it really counts, freedom to explore consciousness, freedom to put people first before protocol and regulation, freedom to educate ourselves on the best protocols and regulation, freedom to live the lives with the resources we have in the way that is most intelligent for the individual. Freedom to break through the individual box and start thinking more collectively. Tom Rath, one of the authors, Gallup poll used to hire to Strength Finder 2.0 was the first book I read of his about 10 years ago. Strength Finder now, Discover Your Strengths. He has moved on, as every intelligent consciousness does, from the traditional metric analysis and growth within the culture. You'll find this with every great leader in the field, that if they're dedicated to the true science of service and helping, that they start with the cultural values, how to make more money, how to do this, how to do that, all the things the culture says that is really important and nothing else matters. They start with that. And the book he's working on right now is the people in your life who really matter, the friends. And he's doing profiles on homeless people. And what's blatantly obvious when you read the profiles is that very good qualities in each of these individuals was actively attacked and unsupported within their environment, and they had nowhere to go. And then they are betrayed. The culture is protected at the expense of their dignity, of their right, of their humanity. And they get the loud message that they have no value. Who they are, who they want to be is not wanted. And when that message is pervasive, then a couple of things happen. Like one man, his best friend is fired. Of course, businesses are in the business of making money. We all know that. Why do we all know that? Why aren't businesses in the business of helping people? You just look at my business, circle around a little bit. I decided my business would not be in the business of making money. It'll be in the business of making me and my crew happy. That seemed like a much more intelligent thing. So I'm using MDMA to examine a core cultural protocol. And I'm saying, that doesn't make sense. I want to be around happy crew. I can't do that if they're the enemy. So I'm going to give them a $5 an hour raise. And my income goes up. The Danes, who pay 80% taxes, just 30% more than me, do an enormous amount to protect their individuals. Minimum wages above $20 an hour. I mean, just important stuff to protect their citizens' quality of life. And they have more billionaires per capita. It's a joke. It's a lie. You listen to O'Reilly and, there's this whole thing about, the people are going to milk the system. It's not happening in the places that are actually loving and caring for their people. So that is a lie. It's not happening. Higher quality of life and more wealth per capita. So, and everyone's happier. So you have to look at the data. So this man's best friend, the only person that protects him from a toxic boss, is fired. No regard for the social or well-being impact in the company. He can't take it anymore. He's got no one to talk to about this toxicity. So he doesn't get any training in this culture or the company. It's a good company, but so he starts not being able to cope. It's really hurting him. So he starts drinking, becomes an alcoholic. Then he loses his wife and his 3 children, loses his job, because the alcohol actually does what it's intended to do. He starts backlashing at his toxic boss. But the boss makes more money in the dry analytics of the company. So he gets fired to protect the money, not protect the well-being, the character, the culture of the company. He lives in his car. And then the police impound it. And then he's homeless for 20 years. And no one cares. Until Tom Rath interviews him and starts gathering the data. What is the data? Who gets out of that kind of situation? Why? And even that is not the way the Thais would do it. The Thais don't need 1,000 samples of someone like this man before they say, oh, I didn't get it. I just thought we were supposed to leave homeless people on the street for 20 years. But now I see. Now I see. I don't see the homeless person. I see your bit of paper. I see the economic statistics. I see this. Now I see. I don't see you as a human being. I see you as a statistic on a piece of paper. Oh, it's all right now. We've got the data. Oh, it's all right now. You're not quacky naturalists. There's data to show that you have been understanding this for 5,000 years in Buddhist cultures might actually be onto something intelligent. Of course, you weren't before we were reluctant enough to do a study on it. That now we've got to honor you because you're showing up in our own little myopic protocol here. But oh, there's data. Honor the data. People are irrelevant. It's a joke. So these are some of the politics of the situation. And one of my great desperations in this culture has been the fact that I'm so uneducated in a culture that does not educate us emotionally that I haven't had enough data, which is the language of a sociopathic culture, to be seen through the only lens that exists. We're in a paradigm, lock, stock, and barrel, and it's called scientific materialism. And it's patronized quackery to talk about anything that's outside of that paradigm. It has to defend itself on a completely different setup, and it's time that that shifted. It's time that that shifted. Science is on very, very feeble ground with its confident assertions in, at the very least, a 50-50 probability field that consciousness doesn't exist, that divinity doesn't exist, that people aren't important, that we're all random accidents. It's a very, very fragile tenet to stand on, because they can't get that tenant into a laboratory any more than you can fit God in a laboratory, so they're fucked. But are they humble enough to admit it? Or do they poison the media with their vile rage and disgust, with that sneering look that says, I'm better than you, and I don't even have to bother to explain it because we all know, because we've all agreed to turn a blind eye to what doesn't fit into scientific capitalist materialism. She got it. She understood why a big part of me wants to die, and why now, with plans to moved to Thailand with something to excitedly plan every day for hours and hours with my girlfriend. Why I want to live in that reality. But my country is losing my income, my taxes, my creativity, my generosity, my caring. It is losing medicine that it will not honor. And that is not good for it. And it's not good for anyone who doesn't have the confidence, time, money, energy, courage, clarity to get out of the hell that they are in. The hell that, in the way that so many abusive dynamics are maintained, when there's a codependency, which there is. We are codependent with our culture, our government, the people around us. It's too dangerous for most of us to make enemies with our codependence. And so this truth gets silenced. And I myself found that I couldn't talk about it as fully as I am now until I had a clear plan of escape. Because the amount of torture, the amount of shame, the amount of rage that these people and this culture can direct at me as a group force to shut up this anomaly, to shut up this voice of truth is so big, I could die. Many do. Many do.